In a 10, Pizzeria. I don't think it's a secret that the main reason people compare Freddy Fazbear's to Chuck E. Cheese is because it's the same shtick. I think it's pretty obvious. Obvious enough in fact that I don't really need to talk about it, but this is going out in like 2 weeks time, so I needed numbers, okay? I'm literally filming this on the day that Security Breach is supposed to come out. So anything that relates it to Chuck E's, if any, since this is one that takes place in a giant mall, and I don't think Chuck E's has done that, it won't be on the list, because the game doesn't release for like another 7 hours. But I haven't heard of any other children's pizzerias with animatronics and all like the hoopla of cardboard pizza. I mean, like there may be some overseas, but in the States where this game takes place and where the creator is from, I don't think that there's any competitors to Chuck E. Cheese. The idea of a pizzeria with robot animatronics that sing is pretty unique, so I think that's fairly obvious. Also the name, Freddy, Fazbear, Chuck E. Cheese. And at 9, animatronics. Now, not only are the animatronics just kind of the same, since you know they're all anthropomorphized animals, but even the characters seem the same. The inspiration for Chica could be one of many things, but most notably, in this case at least, one of Chuck E's friends from the Chuck E. Cheese lineup is called Helen Henny, which would make a lot of sense given the alliteration in Chica's name and the fact that they're both chickens. Helen Henny and Chica the Chicken I think are pretty obviously meant to be connected, and while Bonnie and Freddy may not have direct comparisons, I think that like the whole like it's a pizzeria thing, the animatronics are pretty solid evidence as to why they're the same as well. Plus, Foxy may be in some ways based on the character of Rolf the Wolf from the Rock of Fire Explosion show of his Pizza Place's animatronic band, which is also a part of Chuck E's group, as they both have their own stage apart from the other characters, and both animatronics are animals part of the Canidae family, or Canidae family. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but that's just like foxes, wolves, dogs, etc. And at 8, The Ice Cream Man. Suggested to me by Amanda, the Ice Cream Man comic series is a horror anthology of loosely connected stories that all share the common link of a mysterious ice cream man named Rick, who's also revealed to be Ricardus, who, while a seemingly ordinary ice cream man, possesses inexplicable powers which he uses upon unsuspecting people. Rick's nemesis Caleb, a man dressed in an all-black cowboy outfit, will sporadically appear in the series trying to thwart Rick's plans, sometimes successfully and sometimes unsuccessfully. Honestly, this kind of story is very reminiscent of William Afton and Henry's story, Afton being the ice cream man, which is ironic given what happened to Elizabeth, and Henry is Caleb trying to thwart William's plans, sometimes successful and sometimes not. But no matter what, William always comes back, just like the Ice Cream Man. And Ice Cream Man is very close to how I feel William acts with his victims. Like, he's all like warm and fuzzy and then he just shoves you in the back of his freezing cold van and drives off. And at 7, headlines. The Twitter account of Diamond Zia on June 27, 2020 tweeted out 3 photos with the line of, quote, FNAF will be real in 48 hours. These pictures were of news articles, one from USA Today titled 5 children have gone missing inside Chuck E. Cheese, parents report smells coming ... one from Associated Press called post-hour worker at Chuck E. Cheese reported dead at 27, and a final one from the Something News titled night shift workers at Chuck E. Cheese claim strange movements from animatronics during post hours. However, this title had animatronics spelled incorrectly. It said animatronics. Everyone was freaking out, understandably, and the pictures of the articles, particularly the first one, were shared all across the internet. People were losing their minds, especially because this is around the time where Chuck E. Cheese was announcing their closure. However, people didn't realize that these were just fake. How are they fake, you ask? It's simple. Source code editing. You can change what anything says on a website using like source code inspection, but it will only change for you. Like until you like reload the page, like by editing the source code. You just need to like find the aspect you're looking for, and then once you do, you can change it to whatever you want. So whoever made the original image had found an article about Chuck E. Cheese closing from USA Today, and then changed the title to 5 children going missing, and the same thing with the other articles. Hence why there are only images of the articles and not actual links. It was a hoax that blew up and honestly probably hurt Chuck E. Cheese even more. And at 6, closing. Also the fact that due to COVID, because you know, global pandemic, a load of Chuck E. Cheese locations were closing isn't helping the comparison to FNAF, considering how multiple Chuck E. Cheese locations closed as well, not just the one. Like I said, some people were blaming these closings on missing children and other things, like in the last point, but that's not really the case. They were just starting to lose too much money to keep their restaurants operational, so they just had to close some of them. Did they close a location in Hurricane, Utah, where the games take place? No. But they closed one in Layton, Utah, which is like a 4-hour drive from Hurricane. Hurricane is actually closer to Las Vegas than it is to Layton. So I think we're safe to say that these pizzerias are safe from killing sprees, hopefully. And even rebranding part of their kitchen to Pascali's Pizza and Wings didn't really do them much good. But it helped Matt Patton get a hold of a pizza to test it, to see if the Chuck E. Cheese pizzas were reassembled or if they were just born that way in a food theory. And turns out they're just born that way. Halfway through into number 5, Real Pizzeria. Before the release of FNAF 4, Scott Cawthon's website was littered with references to the numbers 8 and 7 in the source code. This caused many fans, and even dear old Matt Pat, to think that these were references to the year 1987, when the famous frontal lobe bite occurred. However, other fans believed that these were coordinates, so after plugging them into Google Maps somehow, which honestly I don't understand how you would have gone about doing that. Like, do you just like type all the numbers in? Like, I don't know, I tried it and it didn't work. Whatever. After putting them into Google Maps somehow, they found a location that it actually gave. And the location was an actual pizzeria. Obviously, once this got shared, fans of the franchise started harassing the place trying to get answers. And while it was all one big coincidence, someone might have caught on before. Kathy Blockus reviewed the pizzeria saying that the robots kill. And I saw a robot fox killing a kid before in there. Run for your lives out of there. This was left 3 weeks before FNAF 4 was announced, which is when all the 8s and 7s appeared on the website. So while this is incriminating, they also left the place 5 stars on that review where they said that they were watching people get murdered. So obviously they're just a fan of the franchise. And at 4, FNAF 4 Bite. FNAF 4 may be one of the most confusing games in the franchise, with seemingly nobody having solved it to this day unless Scott just hasn't mentioned it. But the Bite of 83, which takes place at the end of this game, makes these scarily like a real FNAF location. Not because something like this has happened before, or at least as far as I could tell from my research, but because this isn't a death that has to do with possessed animatronics or crazy technology, or resurrected purple people being bruised from the inside thanks to an amalgam of animatronic parts. No, this just has to do with an animatronic being given way too much juice. Matt Pat tackled this exact topic in a theory back from 2017, where he determined that to cause a catastrophic brain failure like we see Crying Child suffer in that bite, each of the 8 teeth that he gets bit with would have had to been applying over 14,000 newtons of force. 14,758 newtons of force to be exact. Which, like I've been saying, is serious overkill for moving an animatronic head. That would require multiple industrial grade pneumatic actuators that you wouldn't be able to fit in the suit, okay? This isn't a spring lock failure, like a lot of people say. This was something that is tangible in this reality. And that's probably even more terrifying than all of the jump scares at once. Getting close to the end in number 3, Disturbing Desires. Okay, so this is something that, while not directly translating into like the FNAF world or from FNAF to our world, it's a serious issue that I've seen in the comments, okay? So we've made a series of videos about how we could turn a closed Chuck E. Cheese location into a FNAF joint, or even all of them into FNAF joints, but you see, in the comments of those videos, which you should totally go watch by the way, links in the iCard, and then share the videos with Scott because that sounds like a fun project, even if it's just like for a week, please. If Mr. Beast can open a fast food chain, Scott, I'm sure you can make FNAF real. The comments of those videos, okay, are full of various people telling me that they think it would be a great idea to have a real FNAF, because then they could go and die in the restaurant and possess an animatronic. What? Why the absolute hell would you want that? First of all, okay, possession isn't real. That's not a thing in real life. I have yet to see any real evidence about it or anything paranormal, okay? But in addition to that, even going by FNAF rules, you would need to suffer heavily when you die in order to generate the agony that is needed to possess something. Since in FNAF, all possession is actually just a manifestation of your extreme agony grabbing onto something that's nearby, as we learned from Fazbear Frights and Dr. Phineas Taggart. If you're happy that you're in the FNAF restaurant and you're happy that you're dying there so you can possess something, you wouldn't end up possessing something because you wouldn't be in agony. You'd be happy. So, this is just a bad idea overall. Don't do it. But ultimately, in at number 2, Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter is a fictional character created by novelist Thomas Harris. Lecter is a serial killer who eats his victims. Before his capture, he was actually a respected forensic psychiatrist, and after his incarceration he is consulted by FBI agents Will Graham and Clarice Starling to help them find other serial killers. His most iconic appearance being in Silence of the Lambs and the often misquoted line of "Hello Clarice, have the lambs stopped screaming?" And while you may not be able to find any similarities between Afton and Lecter, this one is actually confirmed as inspiration, at least for his voice. According to his voice actor PJ Haywood, in Sister Location, Afton's voice is inspired by Hannibal Lecter, in a way that he's unnervingly calm even when he's about to kill someone, which is supported by some of his novel counterparts' quotes. So yes, while it's not directly inspiring Afton, it inspired his voice. And finally, in at number 1, Nathan Dunlap. In December of 1993, after Chuck E. Cheese had closed in Aurora, Colorado, Margaret Kohlberg, the manager, was tallying receipts in the back room. While she does that though, Bobby Stevens scrubs down the kitchen, and Sylvia Crawwell, Ben Grant, and Colleen O'Connor all work in cleaning the main area. However, there is someone hiding in the bathrooms, 19-year-old Nathan Dunlap. Earlier that year, he had been working there as a cook before getting into an argument over his hours, which resulted in him losing his job. He was looking for revenge. He exited the washroom and began firing, killing everyone in the building. First Sylvia, then Ben, then Colleen. Then he went into the kitchen, where the bullet entered Bobby's jaw and sent him flying across the room. And then Nathan went to the back, where Margaret opened up the safe before being shot twice. Nathan then filled her bag with $1,500 cash and arcade tokens and keychains. Thanks to the security cameras, he was promptly arrested and sentenced to death. But Bobby did end up surviving, luckily, and he was actually able to testify at Nathan's trial. I got this theory from Matt Patton, his first ever game theory on FNAF, because he was relating it to the events of the actual series. But the fact that this lines up so well is pretty terrifying. And while it may not be true that it's based off of that, I think those stories are a little too close to just not think about it. And at 10, Springtrap. Craftix Gaming's YouTube channel features a video of a real Springtrap costume, and honestly, it's terrifying. Springtrap is the main animatronic of FNAF 3, and this costume is freaking nuts. This is a very good costume, and while Springtrap may not be the scariest animatronic, he's not someone I'm gonna want to tussle with. However, I want to talk about what's going on with this character, because my guy, you dressed up as a possessed man who is inhabiting an animatronic, unable to die but still decaying. You are quite literally dressing up as a serial killer. Like in the FNAF world, if you dressed up like this, it'd be like if you dressed up as Ted Bundy in this world. And if you want to be in FNAF that badly, okay, don't dress as the serial killer, is all I'm saying. And I know that's ironic coming from me, okay, given what I'm dressed like at this moment. Do I look like I want to be in Five Nights at Freddy's? Have I made things seem like I want to be in this world? Because if I have, you need to watch more of these videos, okay? Also, I'm dressed up as the purple guy who makes no appearance in the actual FNAF world, okay? There is no actual, okay, there is the actual purple guy, but he doesn't look like this, okay? The purple guy that I am dressed as is not actually a real version of the serial killer in their world, okay? I don't want to be in that world. Those doors aren't it, Chief. They ain't it. No, the doors ruin it for me. And at 9, Scrap Baby. Scrap Baby is a creepy animatronic. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Scrap Baby is by far creepier than the normal baby animatronic, and this costume certainly does it justice. Animatronics are a difficult costume to really make, since we're people, and unfortunately do not have robotic limbs for the most part. Or if we do, we typically try to make it look like a real leg instead of a robot leg. But a Scrap Baby is even more difficult since, you know, it's a scrap animatronic, and it has a giant freaking claw in its hand. Scrap Baby is a very damaged and recycled version of Baby with a realistic reddish orange kind of bodysuit, light blue stuff, yellow pigtails, and okay, she wears an orange top with red frills, and it's just super damaged, okay? Like this, she's very damaged. Mentally and physically. Yet somehow Instagram user Gaius Bazzani was able to recreate this in an awesome way. So, very well done. And at 8, Vany. With Vany being an upcoming villain and already one of the most popular characters in the series, there are bound to be plenty of costumes of her. However, this one from Rojito Uwu on Twitter is probably the most accurate and creepiest one I've seen. Vany being a reluctant follower does in a way technically make this a glitch trap cosplay as well, but we won't really talk about that because that's not what counts. This costume is probably the most realistic costume on this list because, well, Vany in the games ended up making her own suit and is just a human inside, whereas like the other characters like Scrap Baby or Springtrap are animatronics as well as sometimes part human, be it soul or another body. And Rogito's costume follows the exact same concept as Vany, just a person who makes their own suit, which makes this potentially one of the scariest things of all. I mean, technically it's not the same thing because they're not possessed and enticed to make it by the person possessing their brain, but I mean, it's close enough. I mean, they could be possessed for all we know. I don't know. I don't know. And at 7, Ennard. Costumes don't really have to be elaborate to be scary. Take for example this Ennard cosplay by YouTube channel Skywarped33. The entire endoskeleton spaghetti bits aren't there, but the lights and sounds make it even more frightening than you'd think. The face also opens up, and I think that we all know how I feel about animatronics who can move their face at will at this point, okay? It's not something that should be allowed. However, even without all the parts and the eyes, this Ennard cosplay is not something I would want to run into in a dark alley, especially not after that goddamn vent repair minigame. That caused me to have some serious issues, okay? It's rough, okay? I used to like spaghetti. Man, like now what am I supposed to do? And at 6, Nightmare Freddy. Nightmare Freddy is one of the most iconic versions of the character, even if there are only 3 games that feature this guy, those being FNAF 4, Ultimate Custom Night, and FNAF VR. However, this Nightmare Freddy cosplay is insane, and in my opinion would have been our frontrunner for the Coupe de France cosplay competition that it was for back in 2017. The video was uploaded by YouTube channel Gorgon Geek, and this guy plays the robot thing really well, but as soon as he drops that microphone he goes into terror mode, and it's certainly something to behold. I would have enjoyed it if he had like the little frettles with him, but the moving mouth is certainly a nice touch, especially with the attempted jump scares they do in the video, because he just goes like ah and stuff. Like imagine if this guy had started twerking though. At one point I thought he was going to. He went to pick up the mic and I thought he was just going to start busting it, but no. I think that would have won them gold though. If you get this out of here. If you had started twerking, my guy, you would have won. I don't know what place you came in, but if you'd twerked, you would have won. Halfway through into number 5, Buff Helpy. Okay, this may not be a cosplay, but Buff Helpy is probably the most disturbing non-cosplay character I can really include on this list. If you didn't already know, Buff Helpy is a meme that was created on a Daco FNAF meme review video and has ever since been haunting him and the rest of the community. Don't get me wrong, okay? I love Helpy. But this Buff Helpy meme has generated a whole load of Buff FNAF character ideas, and it terrifies me now. There's nowhere is safe from these creations. If you look up any character, you're bound to find a buff version of them at some point. You just need to scroll down enough, okay? It's one of the rules of the internet, okay? Same thing with what happens to Chica. But no matter what, this is just some psychological torment that I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, actually. But I'm talking about it because, like, it's Halloween, and the world is currently my worst enemy, so if I have to look at this thing on a regular basis when I'm writing these goddamn lists, you have to look at it for this one number, okay? One number. That's all I ask. And at 4, Nightmare. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Nightmare is the scariest animatronic from the games, hands down. This guy will get me every time, and it's one of those reasons I just refuse to play FNAF 4. The other is Nightmare Fredbear, but at least I don't have to deal with them in real life, right? They're only a nightmare character created in the mind of a coma patient in a video game, right? Well, guess again. Thanks to Bunny Creations on Amino Apps, we get both Nightmare and Nightmare Fredbear. Ironically, Nightmare Fredbear is played by their twin sister. And I mean, it's ironic because, well, Elizabeth Afton is sometimes presumed to be Crying Child's twin sister. Anyway, these absolute hulking costumes are going to make me drop a load of my pants. Like, if I saw this in real life, holy crap. Like, imagine actually living in a house that is at least kind of laid out like the one from FNAF 4. And then your kids want to play a prank on you. My grandparents' house is kind of laid out like this. It's not as simple as just 2 halls on either side of the room. But like, they have the master bedroom does have 2 doors. So theoretically, that's something that can be reenacted there. I don't want to do that. No.
Number 3, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Plex. We haven't gone there yet, but you know I cannot wait to go visit the Pizzaplex in Security Breach. It already just looks so expansive and so fun. I am a sucker for locations with lots of areas to explore, RPG gamer over here, and the idea of a more free roaming environment in the world of FNAF brings me a lot of joy. Terror-filled joy, but still joy. Mostly what I would want to do is enjoy that amazing go-kart track in the Pizzaplex. It looks like the go-kart track at Niagara Falls, but indoors. It's like scary Mario Kart come to life. I want to drive. What would be the part of the Pizzaplex that you'd be the most excited to go and check out? IRL.
Then ultimately in at number 2, Twisted Freddy. Holy ever living hell, okay? This is a horrific masterpiece that I could only hope to achieve. This full body Twisted Freddy costume is probably one of the most horrific FNAF costumes I've ever seen. Especially because I believe that the Twisted animatronics are probably the scariest version of the animatronics present in the novels, and a solid tie for the scariest animatronics alongside the nightmare ones from FNAF 4. This is some pretty damn expert craftsmanship if you ask me though, okay? This is a full body suit and it blows my freaking mind. Like, look at this. It would weigh a ton and it would definitely need a hander, especially if my clumsy was the one walking around in it, but it straight up looks like if Freddy Krueger were an animatronic. And I mean, I'm not mad about it in the slightest, but like, it's still freaking creepy. So well done, DeRegular Sauce, who is the Twitter user behind this glorious creation. Well done. And finally, in at number 1, Withered Bonnie. This Withered Bonnie cosplay is probably the scariest damn FNAF cosplay I've ever seen. This is incredible and comes from the YouTube user The Nick of Time. At first, I legitimately thought that this was CGI instead of an actual costume, but lo and behold, it was just an insane costume. Glowing eyes and seemingly actually aluminum parts, and a chest that opens up that you can push it out with your other hand, which is honestly actually a decent scare. Frankly, in the video I was kind of taken aback when they did that, so in real life I'm sure that it results in at least a bit of a jump scare, but this kind of thing always impresses the hell out of me, because like the closest I've come to making a full costume was when I helped someone work on one of theirs. But that's the closest I've gotten. Hey, I made like a lightning bolt for the chest, and I helped, I made paper cup, like bracers, that's about it. This is hella impressive to me. I don't understand how people do this.
Number 10, behind the scenes. I definitely would want to peek behind the curtain at Freddy Fazbear's, so to speak. How cool would it be to wander around the staff areas or roam the backstage, visit the storage room that holds all the animatronic suits, basically feel like you were an employee or a privileged VIP at the restaurant. Sure, you might have to worry about free-roaming animatronics, maybe trying to kill you, but that's all part of the fun of the experience of actually visiting this place, right? Number 9, Spooky Mansion. I love the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, and so evidently I'm also a big fan of some of the locations that we visit there. Namely, I like everything that is based in and around the Spooky Mansion game mode. I personally would love to go to a mansion around Halloween that was completely FNAF themed and explore, interact with animatronics, and ideally eat a ton of candy. Candy is the best. When I used to go trick-or-treating, I would always sort my candy after, and my favorite candy, the one I would always eat first, would be the Reese Cups and the little mini Caramilks. We're not sponsored by either of those, but so good. I actually think that's the Caramilk slogan. I don't know, do chocolate bars have slogans? It's like something. Oh, maybe it's just caramel? Oh no, that's a different treat. Fun fact, some folks have already attempted around Halloween to bring the world of FNAF to life themselves by building haunted houses inspired by the franchise. So here's hoping we can all Halloween again this year and that you have one of these kinds of themed houses in your neighborhood. That would be so cool. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, be sure to show it by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental. This place is just so steeped in lore, I think we'd all need to go there. Sister Location is also my favorite FNAF game, so you know I would want to crawl through those vents and feel that terror building up in my throat, that scream that I know I can't let out, because if I do, some free-roaming animatronic in the dark will find me. Ennard or Ballora, probably. I don't really know why I'd want to go to Sister Location. It is so terrifying, but I think a big part of it is that terror. Like we were talking about sort of at the beginning of this list, we seek out horror because we enjoy the feeling that it gives us. And Sister Location is very much that for me. In terms of visiting that space in real life, I wouldn't want to actually be hurt, just to feel that rush of danger where it feels like something could go terribly wrong, but I know I'm safe because it's all just pretend. I mean, this would just be pretend, right? If we're talking about these places. Number 7, The Office.
No! God, please, no! No!
One of the places I think we'd all like to see, sit at, and take pictures in would be the office. When I was a kid, I visited Minnie Mouse's house at Disney World, which I actually don't think is there anymore. This experience, though, was amazing. It meant I got to explore, roam around, and feel like I was Minnie Mouse for the day. I imagine visiting a version of the office that had, you know, working tech, doors, and tons of drawings and little details worked in would also be equally magical, except in a scary way. I guess what I'm saying is we need a FNAF world. Number 6, Circus Baby's Pizza World. I really just want to go here because I want to explore this location and see what mysteries I could potentially uncover. Circus Baby's Pizza World is still a location where I don't fully know what to expect. All I can guess is that it would be similar but different than Freddy's. Who are all the animatronics? Is the atmosphere and the themes the same? Are there more clowns and circus elements? Because that's what I picture. I imagine free, unlimited buttered popcorn at every table, a ceiling covered in cloth made to look like the top of a big circus tent, lots of warm lighting, maybe even a show where acrobats perform. Perhaps even the serving staff have like circus-based talents. I really imagine it to be a magically themed restaurant, which is why I think it would be a cool place to visit. Just maybe don't let Circus Baby serve you any ice cream. Number 5, your own pizzeria. Who doesn't want to go and enjoy the fun and horror of the pizzeria they themselves created in Pizzeria Simulator? I know I do. Imagine getting to enjoy your own games, attractions, and animatronics that you picked to be in your pizzeria. The question is, would you want to visit this location as an employee, the owner and manager, or as a guest? I personally would want to be in the role of manager to see how others were enjoying their time at my pizzeria, as long as I didn't have to deal with any lawsuits. Number 4, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. I mean, I think we all knew this one had to make the cut. What would a real Freddy's be like, though, if we could go? Would it be like Chuck E. Cheese? Would it be like some kind of cheaper version of that place? Would the food be any good? And when would you want to go? That would obviously affect the atmosphere. After the reopening? After the re-reopening? Would you want to go when it first opened? Or see it looking a little more run down, a little more messy around the edges. A version with dirty back areas and corners, animatronics in disrepair. I personally would want to see a very shiny version of the restaurant, but one where maybe there was just one area where things felt kind of off, where there was this darker, more insidious presence that you could feel. Mostly delightful, but with this sharp edge of undenying horror, waiting to cut you if you took a corner too closely, or looked in the wrong direction at the right time.
Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Glitch Trap. We know my issue with Glitch Trap, alright, okay? We know that I just want to watch William Afton burn and then leave him there permanently, hence why I'm wearing the costume. But I want him to actually be in hell and then stay there while we move on with another killer or something else in the series. Please, for God's sake, Scott. I hate this always comes back thing that he's got going on. And despite being dressed as Purple Guy, I want William dead. So, when I saw this frighteningly realistic looking Glitch Trap costume, my nerves hit an all-time high. I think the sheer simplicity of the Glitch Trap suit is certainly something that makes this a creepy costume, since the stitches are very accentuated here. They're very clear on this version. Like, it might be like the higher contrast than like the actual suit in the games, because like you know that they're there, but you can't really tell. But like, either way, this is creepy. Plus, again, it's another version of William Goddamn Afton, who already haunts my nightmares. So what the heck? Zombunny Creations, again, on Twitter this time. Why do you gotta do this to me? Huh? Why? Bro?
Number 2, Fazbear Frights. I personally think one of the places that makes the most sense to want to go is Fazbear Frights. Fazbear Frights is the horror attraction version of the pizzeria. We visited, of course, in FNAF 3. With its spooky interior and its haunted restaurant vibes, it just makes the most sense that this would be the real version. It just makes the most sense that this would be like the real version 1 that we might get. Complete with, as is described in the Fazbear Frights books, a gift shop as well. I like the idea of an interactive museum that's all about celebrating the horrific franchise that we've all come to know and love. Number 1, Help Wanted VR. How can we visit a game though, Amanda? How can we visit the game when we play? Help Wanted is just supposed to be a game. Even in canon, it's described as being a virtual experience. But if you could walk through this virtual experience, would you? Well, that is a thing that could actually happen. Around the world, there are a few virtual experiences that actually allow you to roam in a room and in effect interact with the virtual components you see in your headset, effectively transporting you to that place virtually through your senses. These experiences are interactive in a brand new way. For example, if you see a sink in the room you were in your headset, you can actually walk over to that sink in the real world, turn it on, and feel the water running on your hand as you watch it spill from the tap in VR. This takes VR to a whole new level where you don't just see an experience, but you can also feel, touch, and potentially even smell what's going on virtually around you. There's also tons of like surround sound going on, so you might actually hear something behind you and then turn around and see it, if you know what I mean. It's pretty neat. Now imagine, if you will, doing this with the Help Wanted experience. I personally have done a horror walkthrough, a fully immersive VR horror experience before, and wow, it was terrifying. So I can pretty accurately imagine how scary Help Wanted in this experience would be.
In 10, Donald Harvey. Harvey belonged to a group of psychos known as the Angels of Mercy, who claimed to kill for the benefit of their victim. Harvey was convicted of 37 of his more than 57 suspected murders, and he had also confessed to as many as 87. When Harvey was hired at Cincinnati VA Medical Hospital, he managed to collect over 30 pounds of cyanide, which he kept in his home. He also kept diaries and detailed notes on each of his victims, including how he killed them. This gives me intense William Afton vibes, okay? Not for some certain reasons, but for the delusion of him thinking that he was doing it for the victim's benefit, but still doing it in horrifying ways. It's the exact same kind of delusion that I could see William having, and a similar delusion to what he seems to have in the games. In the books, I don't think he's like this exactly, but his game version certainly seems the type, especially given his appearance in the Foxy Go 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 minigame where he's smiling. And at 9, Ranco Killer. Hailing from the Deadly Premonition universe, this video game villain is the launching point for the game's story. The murder of Anna Graham sparked renewed interest in the legend of the Ranco Killer. After the arrival of FBI agent Francis York Morgan, Harry began to keep a close eye on the case, intervening at seemingly random moments. He uses his aide, Michael Tolleson, to convey messages to York, telling him to take it slow and to keep his mind open to all possibilities. As York tried to solve the case, the new killer showed up many times. As more evidence surfaced, it became clear that George Woodman was the new Ranco Killer. He had sacrificed the woman of Greenvale in order to become immortal. Unfortunately for him, York was able to defeat him, ending the terror of the Ranco Killer. Much like how, in the novels at least, William is searching for immortality thanks to the discovery of Remnant, and then is defeated by the Springtrap suit and Henry's multiple fires. Okay, well, he would have been defeated if he wasn't possessed by his son, but I mean, like, there's still a parallel there. Right? And at 8, arcade. While plenty of places have arcades, I mean, like, hell, even my cousin has an arcade, but that's because he's absolutely rolling in it. The main comparison is the whole prize counter thing. Not many places have a prize counter, but it is certainly not exclusive to Chucky's. Bowling Alley in my hometown has one, Dave & Buster's has one, the list goes on. I mean, if they really want to generate like a customer base based on the arcade, they usually have a prize counter. But I think that it's the arcade and prize counter in combination with everything else that kind of solidifies it as being a Chuck E. Cheese. Only Chucky's has all three of these previous points, and even for me, I haven't gone to a Chucky's in God knows how long, but I can still picture the arcade clear as day, and all I need to do to change that memory into a memory of being at a Freddy Fazbear's is just change the animatronics. I can change them simply enough since it's not really a memory and really a recreation of a memory, like how the Rick uploads the virus in the season 3 premiere of Rick and Morty, since he makes a totally fabricated origin story, which we have since learned at least has a little bit of truth to it. So basically it's like that, okay? Take parts of something that I remember and change small things about it, and then boom, I'm in Freddy Fazbear's. Change Chucky to Freddy, and the guy in the costume dancing with the kids is a Bonnie now, and now he's leading kids to the back room where the other animatronics are. Oh no. In at 7, Norman Osborne. Another suggestion from Amanda that I'm surprised I didn't think of first. Norman Osborne being the Green Goblin, but also the CEO of a very successful company, it seems like these two share a lot of the same ideas, or I guess rather the same concepts. Business owner who by night is evil and wreaks havoc without anyone really knowing it. But despite their secrecy, eventually people catch on and find out their secrets. Superpowers in the form of a goblin serum or being possessed by your dead son, so the two characters at the fundamental level are actually very much alike. The specifics aren't, which is really what threw me off, but it's a part of why we wanted Willem Dafoe to play Afton in the FNAF movie, right? Because he played this kind of character before with Norman. Plus, Norman and Afton kind of sound the same, just a little bit though. Osborne and William don't. But William and Willem do, so who knows at this point. And at 6, Thomas Lee Dillon. Thomas Lee Dillon was a serial sniper found guilty of killing 5 people. Directed by the voices in his head, Dillon killed people randomly. According to attending psychiatrists, Dillon's delusions of grandeur spilled over into the reality of his life and the lives of his victims. His victims were killed by a high-powered rifle while they participated in outdoor activities, sometimes hundreds of miles from Dillon's home. Authorities did not link them to Dillon until he had sent a letter to the local paper. After the FBI put together a criminal profile of the killer, a friend of Dillon's brought him to the attention of the authorities, which in my mind at least is nearly identical to the story of William Afton. The amount of the first victims, the authorities only investigating the murders after they got tipped off by a friend of the killer, in Afton's case that being Henry, and eventually you'll see that there are quite a few similarities to multiple real people, and it's scary. At least when people compare me to Afton, it's because I wear purple. Halfway through, in at number 5, Elliot Lwig. Elliot Lwig is a recurring character in Poppy Playtime. He is most known for his position as both the founder and overseer of Playtime Co. Elliot Lwig is an old man with light skin, blackish hair, and an unknown eye color, probably brown, given that I think it's the most common eye color. He is seen wearing a suit during the first VHS tape in the beginning of Chapter 1, A Tight Squeeze, which seems to be an old Playtime Co commercial for Poppy herself and for the factory tours that were once held there, where in this video he is engulfed in purple light, which is certainly an interesting moment, one that I even pointed out in our Poppy Playtime playthrough video. Not to mention the whole he puts people in toys thing, like how William put people in animatronics, plus Elliot probably put his daughter into Poppy, much like how Afton's daughter Elizabeth ended up becoming Circus Baby, and then Elliot sealed his daughter away, and Afton put Baby in Circus Baby's entertainment and rental, which we visit in sister locations, so yeah, like this. And at 4, John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy was an American serial killer who killed at least 33 young men and boys. Gacy regularly performed at children's hospital and charitable events as Pogo the Clown or Patches the Clown, personas that he had devised. He became known as the Killer Clown due to his public service as a clown prior to the discovery of his crimes. Gacy committed all of his murders inside of his ranch house. Typically, he would lure a victim to his home and then dupe them into donning handcuffs with the pretext of demonstrating a magic trick. And while this is absolutely disgusting and makes me sick to my stomach, there are still a few similarities to Afton. Killing in a place that's related to you, for instance, Gacy, it was his home, and for Afton it's his business. The target demographic was also the same with young people, although Afton is a bit more diverse and killed girls as well. And while you may think that this is a stretch, even FNAF made the connection with FNAF AR through the clown Springtrap skin. I mean, come on. Dude, if that's not a giveaway, I don't know what is. Getting close to the end, at number 3, Joey Drew Studios. Joey Drew Studios, from the Bendy and the Ink Machine series, also known as The Workshop and The Old Workshop, is an American corporation and animation studio established in 1929. This is where he and his friend Henry Stein, along with all the other workers, collaborated for 30 years before the studio's downfall, producing a series of Bendy cartoons. In 1946, Joey Drew Studios was under investigation after reports of hazardous work environments, missing employees, harassment, and excessive back pay, as well as the company's danger of being bankrupt. All of which are the result of Joey's mismanagement of the studio. Anonymous employees threatened to make labor unions over the poor conditions, which included unpermitted buildings, hazardous electrical wiring, and a plumbing system prone to bursting, which sounds exactly like the working conditions that would be in some form of Fazbear establishment. Plus, there's a machine that takes human souls and turns them into ink monsters, like how the animatronics get infused with the souls of the missing children. I feel like that connection was kind of expected on the list. Penultimately, in number 2, employee manual. Oh, well, do you think that I'm talking about the FNAF employee manual? Absolutely not, I wish it was. This number is actually much more concerning than that, because a particular image sent people into a frenzy with the idea that Chuck E. Cheese restaurant animatronics are actually gonna hurt you. A post from Twitter user @PabloThinghouse made mention of the restaurant's instruction manual, which is for employees, which included a section that said Chuck E. Cheese himself had facial recognition software that would cause him to come to life and attack any intruders caught on the property after hours. Sound familiar, anyone? With the actual manual in the now hidden or deleted tweet saying, quote, "It is always important that all Chuck E. Cheese night shift employees must wear a spare Chuck E. Cheese costume head to avoid any animatronic facial recognition, because if they spot any humans in the building post hours, they will automatically detect that person as a criminal trying to tamper with objects on the building, and that won't lead to anything good." And Pablo's reaction was probably realistic here, since they said, quote, excuse me? And the fact that this is supposed to be the actual manual makes me sad. However, I looked it up and it's not the case, but this is still kind of freaky. And finally, in at number 1, Robert Brella. Robert Brella is to me the seemingly perfect inspiration for William Afton. Not only did this man own a business called Bob's Bizarre Bazaar, where he reportedly sold human skulls, he also seemingly started killing in 1984. The MO is certainly not the exact same. Brella would drug and kidnap men that he met at bars or on the streets, but the same idea of killing people you meet in a restaurant is carried over to William Afton. There is no confirmed inspiration for William, but there are certainly a decent amount of similarities between these two. In fact, if you combine the 4 real serial killers I put on this list, Harvey, Dylan, Gacy, and Brella, you would end up getting basically a real William Afton. I didn't go into much detail with these because, well, YouTube might get mad at that, especially when I'm comparing them to a fictional serial killer from a video game series, but who knows? Either way, I think it's a pretty solid combo of 4 killers, and that's kind of freaky. Well, first of all, let's get this out of the way instantly. If FNAF was real, it would be horrible. Just straight up. 5 kids would have gone missing on one of their locations and the company probably would have closed down. But let's assume that people would still end up going, whether it's because they didn't believe the lies or thought that the government made it up, or because it's their choice, or because they're a YouTuber who wants views. Why are you looking at me like that? Well, assuming that people still went to the restaurant because perhaps maybe they vanished around the area instead of inside the place, what would it be like to live in a real Five Nights at Freddy's? For a kid, it would be pretty awful, but you also wouldn't know it. The world would be dangerous and anyone could be William Afton's next victim, but you wouldn't know that there was a serial killer on the loose with murderous animatronics able to disguise themselves and hide in plain sight that are willing to kill at any moment. But I mean, like, to be fair, that's also like real life, minus the animatronics. For adults, if you have kids, you may be worried. I mean, any parent is always worried about their kids, but if there was a group of kids who went missing in your area, I'm sure that there would at least be a small amount of paranoia. And honestly, it would be reasonable. I mean, I grew up in a house where my father was always worried. So much so that my sister couldn't walk up to her friend's house up the street without him watching to make sure she was okay. And while that would probably be extreme for most parents, if there was a very real threat of kidnapping, I'm sure that there would be a lot of curfews. For the sake of this entire thing, we also have to assume that the police didn't investigate the interiors of the animatronics themselves, despite them smelling like death and leaking body fluids, including blood. Since that's something literally anyone with common sense would check when investigating the disappearance of children and then learning that animatronics are leaking blood and smelling like a dead body. But what of the technology that we see in these games? Would animatronics that can alter their appearance be realistic? No. Of course not. The spring-lock suits, the illusion discs, the twisted animatronics, and the like are all extremely improbable considering the actual technology of not only our time, but the 80s when this would have normally taken place. At least, if we have a rough idea of the timeline, which honestly at this point, we could be totally wrong about the timeline. The technology in the games is so highly advanced that we have absolutely no idea what else they could have access to. They could have smartphones in the 80s for crying out loud. And if they don't, then William should have capitalized on that rather than murdering countless innocent kids, because he could have literally been a billionaire. The highly advanced technology would have to be disregarded in terms of the abilities of William Afton, so while this seems like a fight that nobody could really win, realistically, it wouldn't be as bad as we think, at least in those terms, since even Chuck E. Cheese, the closest thing to Freddy Fazbear's in our world, obviously, still only has the most simple robotic abilities known to man, despite the popularity of Five Nights at Freddy's and their ability to capitalize on that trend by taking some of those concepts, like the advanced robotics, not the dead kids, and then converting them into real life, because like the concepts in the actual pizzeria, not having kids go missing, like I said, that's a bad idea. Although based on comments left on previous videos, especially about how a real-life Freddy's would happen, there have been plenty of people that are willing to die, or more likely to go to Chuck E. Cheese if it was more dangerous for some reason. Y'all are weird. But one final query. How would YouTubers handle it? Clearly, there are YouTubers in this world thanks to the mention of MatPat, or at the very least Game Theory in the Fazbear Frights books, so what of the others? Well, we would most likely not be talking about FNAF, something that I'm sure a lot of you would enjoy, but also something that you wouldn't be aware of, which is a whole other can of worms that I won't be getting into today, because you wouldn't know about FNAF because FNAF wouldn't be a thing. However, I'm sure that there would be plenty of true crime and conspiracy YouTubers heading to a or the same Freddy Fazbear's where the kids went missing in order to solve the case. Or really just talk about it and get nowhere with it. Sounds like someone I know. Since they don't have the clearance or the equipment to do an actual investigation, or on a potentially closed case. Shane Dawson would 100% have gone there for that same conspiracy theory video, and the psychic twins would definitely have showed up at some point and definitely sensed something, but not quite known what it was. Ooh. MatPat may have made a food theory video about it because he made a food theory video about Chuck E. Cheese, but the thing is, these YouTubers coming to investigate, would they be William's next targets? It's an interesting question because as far as we know, he's only killed one adult, and that was Henry. Every other victim has been a kid, so while they may be in more danger, there would clearly be a bigger issue in trying to deal with these YouTubers, especially if they get killed or die mysteriously shortly after visiting a Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. It would probably start some form of curse rumor that would only get more people to go there to try to solve that case. But how would Freddy's have dealt with the pandemic? Would they have made enough to survive the years of quarantine? Or would they, like our Chuck E. Cheese, have to file for bankruptcy? Would they get to open their Pizzaplex? Or would some problematic tweets from William Afton rise and cause the restaurant to get cancelled for calling Chica a he? These are all good questions that we will never really have an answer for because, well, FNAF isn't real. And that's why people keep commenting that nothing in these videos is scary. No, it's not real. It can't actually hurt you. That's why it's not scary. Scary is subjective.